Welcome back, teacher candidates and cooperating teachers. In Module 3, we will take a look at 3 co-teaching strategies. They are team teaching, parallel teaching, and alternative differentiated teaching. The first strategy this module will look at is team teaching. So what is team teaching? It is well-planned, team-taught lessons. It exhibits an invisible flow of instruction with no prescribed division of authority. Both teachers are actively involved in the lesson. From a student's perspective, there is no clearly defined leader, as both teachers share the instruction and are free to interject information. They are also both available to assist students and to answer questions. So what does this look like? It looks like both teachers in front of the class. Often the teachers use the think aloud strategy and dialogue their thinking aloud with each other. The teachers may alternate who is speaking. The other teacher listens and may ask questions or add to what is being said. Team teaching may be used to model directions. Teacher 1 could say, "Here is a list of supplies you'll need in order to start your lab. 1 thermometer, 2 beakers, and 4 packets of mystery powders. Fill 1 beaker to the 100 milliliter mark, and then bring your tray of materials back to your lab station." Teacher 2, thinking aloud, would say, "Okay, I see the list of supplies I need over here." Then Teacher 2 would model how to get the materials and how to measure the correct amount of water into the beaker. As Teacher 2 models these directions, Teacher 1 may complement the teacher student to reinforce positive behavior. Team teaching is a very versatile co-teaching strategy that could be used for many different lessons, but here are a few more examples of when you might use it. It's great for showing multiple ways of solving a problem. It's also a nice strategy to give 2 viewpoints of how to answer the same question, say it's about a character's action. And lastly, it can be used when taking turns to present the material and asking questions, thinking aloud, or adding useful remarks. Please watch this helpful short video clip on team teaching.
In this approach, team teaching, both teachers are often in front of the classroom sharing the responsibilities of lead instruction.
An example of collaboration, because we expect our kids to collaborate so often together and they don't have a model of that a lot of times in a classroom that only has one teacher. And when we can work together to team teach, we can show how to collaborate so that when we ask them to go work with partners or with groups, they have an example of how to do that.
Another variation of team teaching is when both co-teachers have different but equally active roles in a lesson. One teacher might lead the discussion, and the other teacher might record notes on the overhead projector.
And then if she is up there teaching and I know that they're not understanding it, it's easy for me to say, you, come with me, and we go to the side. And I would redo the same thing.
It's reteaching right there exactly the step that they're being confused on so that they can have that deeper grow from that understanding right then.
Both teachers are fully engaged in lesson delivery. The teachers must also work well together in terms of gauging their contributions so that lesson pacing is maintained.
When I'm up there, I forget, my detail, my examples. When we team plan, she remembers there or something and she'll bring it up.
Then yeah, and we can kind of check each other in a way that's positive without going, oh no.
This approach can be energizing. There is often an entertainment factor present as the teachers interact with one another, and this often increases student attentiveness and engagement. When this strategy is used, the instructional conversations and the sharing of question asking and answering can benefit students as they hear different styles of thinking.
There's something that they don't understand. There's one of us roaming around, so scaffolding is happening all the time. It's easier, and the opportunity for the students to ask us questions is just a lot easier for them.
And I think being able to say things in different ways. If I think about something in a different way and I'm able to express that to the students, and then Maylee can say it the way she's done it, so we're reaching the larger number of our class.
In addition, teachers are able to emphasize their strengths in a lesson segment, and teacher creativity is often enhanced using this approach.
Most of the time we actually just plan the lesson first and then decide who wants to do what part depending on our strengths. You know, if it's something that I feel that she's better at, she can do more of the direct instruction. But most of the time if it's a team teaching task, then it's usually half and half.
This strategy should be used occasionally, as some of the more subtle student needs can be missed when grouping is not being used.
It's supporting student learning, just being able to model collaboration and model working together, and showing that it's okay that if you forget, it's okay to have somebody support you and have your back.
The next co-teaching strategy is called parallel teaching. In this approach, each teacher instructs half the students. The two teachers are addressing the same instructional material using the same teaching strategies. What are potential advantages to this? You end up working with half the number of students. This makes it easier for the teacher to observe what is happening, and it makes students feel more comfortable in the smaller group to ask questions or to get clarification. Now please watch the short video clip on parallel teaching.
In the parallel teaching strategy, the co-teachers divide the class in half and instruct them on the same material.
Parallel teaching is teaching the same lesson with half as many students. We divide that up so that children have more airtime and more teacher attention. Really draws them closer to the subject area that they need to be engaged in.
So we go from 22 students down to 11 students in each group.
The primary benefit of this approach is that the student-to-teacher ratio is reduced, thereby allowing the co-teachers to maximize participation and minimize behavior problems during teaching.
It allows for better thought-out answers. The children have more time to think about it. And one of the things I like about it too is that some kids, they kind of want to hide. And when we have them in a smaller group like this, there's less chance for them to hide. It's just nicer always having a smaller group to be able to have more rich discussion and vocabulary from the students.
In this class, co-teachers John and Michael are using table groupings to divide up their classroom. This will reduce the student-teacher ratio, and it will also increase instructional intensity.
The table groupings aren't random. They're grouped according to kind of a heterogeneous grouping so that we have a good mix of EL students and higher and lower performing students.
With this approach, teachers will have to maintain control over the noise level so that the groups do not get distracted. In addition, timing is a critical part of this strategy because both teachers need to take roughly the same amount of time to complete the instructional segment. Teachers should try to use this strategy more frequently to allow for maximum student participation in the learning.
Usually when we're doing parallel teaching, that time can vary, but the attention span of a kindergartner is relatively short, and so from start to finish you're looking at about 15 minutes.
Parallel teaching's a great methodology when you want to focus on the deeper instruction or deeper learning just because of the small group.
We're able to pay closer attention to the details and catch kids before they fall out the bottom. For today's purposes, we found it most convenient to divide up in those familiar groups that they normally work in, and it works very quickly and they're right at home.
The next co-teaching strategy is called the alternative or differentiated co-teaching strategy. Alternative teaching strategies provide two different approaches to teaching the same information. The learning outcome is the same for all students. However, the avenue for getting there is different. Here's an example of a time in which you could use the alternative or differentiated method of teaching. One example is to review a chapter of a novel. So teacher 1 could take a group and they would create a timeline of the main events of the chapter. And then teacher 2 would take a group and have each of his or her students choose a character from the chapter and act out their parts. Both groups are meeting the same goal, which is to review the content of the chapter, but the teachers are teaching it in a different style, and so you can meet the needs of your individual students better. Now please watch this short video clip on alternative differentiated teaching.
In this co-teaching approach, alternative or differentiated teaching, one teacher manages a large group of students, while the other takes a small group for a specific instructional purpose. In this particular teaching sample, a resident is managing the large group and a mentor is managing the small group, but their roles can be switched.
Alternative differentiated instruction is taking a small group of students separate from whole class, and you're either teaching them the same content material, or you use that small group away from whole class to provide intervention for students who might not have learned a concept previously.
It can also be used for enrichment for students who already have the concept, and we just want to take them a little bit farther than the other students are ready for.
This approach provides instructional flexibility and can be used for enrichment, remediation, assessment, or pre-teaching, as well as for alternative methods of providing lesson input.
We can reteach, we can enrich the students' needs, we can also do behavior modifications, and give the students the specific support they need to personalize their instruction.
When we plan an alternative lesson, if a student is struggling in math and she was the one to initially teach the concept, and she was the one to notice a student who was struggling in that area, we might have her teach the concept in the small group. Or we might think, you know what, the student needs a completely different person, different method of learning about this. So then I might be teaching the small group in order to just provide a different way of looking at things.
If I have a stronger connection with the student, it might actually be a good plan for her to have the small group to make those connections with the students too. So then in the long run, we're both connected with all of our students.
Teachers using this strategy will want to pull students for a variety of purposes, so that this approach does not create a situation in which those instructed using this format feel labeled or stigmatized in any way.
They do wonder why they're chosen sometimes, so we've explained to them that all students have different needs. And they understand that. They realize as the school year goes along, we have a very safe classroom environment and we're all here to learn. And so everyone seems fine with when they're pulled back and when they're not pulled back.
This co-teaching approach should be used occasionally when it is needed to increase the performance of particular students or groups of students.
With differentiated instruction, I feel like I can really reach my students' specific needs. I really get to know the students and I can zero in on exactly what they need me to help them with. With a small group, they can feel like they're being heard and they can feel safe to ask questions to allow for their best understanding of the content.
To a teacher that is looking to use alternative instruction for their students, I think it's wonderful, and especially with the co-teaching model, having someone else in the classroom who can support you in noticing the gaps in students' learning or the students who need to have that enrichment.
This concludes Module 3. On your form titled Co-Teaching Assessment, it will ask you these two questions about this module. The first is, think about the lessons that will be taught during the first week of school. Briefly describe a lesson in which the strategy team teaching would be useful. Second, parallel teaching and alternative differentiated teaching are similar strategies. Please tell how the two strategies are different.